Welcome to the fifth stackable video for Chapter 5. In this video, we're going to be talking about the pre-trial process. Now, this course is Introduction to the Administration of Justice. It's not criminal procedures. So we're just going to be touching on these so you understand the whole system. And in the criminal procedures course, AJ 201, you'll walk through step by step how all this happens. I just want to give you a quick overview of stuff. So when we talk about the very first thing that happens after you get arrested, you get arraigned. An arraignment is nothing more than the prosecutor saying, we're charging you with these things. And the judge says, are you guilty or not guilty? Everybody says they're not guilty. It's just the way the game is played. Like 0.00001 of people go at the original arraignment go, I'm guilty. It just doesn't happen, because there's a lot of things that need to be done in the background before the court would be ready to accept a guilty plea. So everybody pleads not guilty at first and then takes care of the guilty. If they're going to change their plea, they do that later. Then at some point, there is an indictment or an information that's filed. So let's talk about how that works. Ultimately, you're going to have either a grand jury hearing or a preliminary hearing. And what I wanted to be able to do is just touch on these. And there's a link to a video that explains the difference between an indictment versus an information. And there's also about a 10-minute video that's really interesting out of another state that talks about a push toward preliminary hearings versus grand juries and the arguments on both sides. One argument, as an example, is one way is faster, less resource intensive. Another argument is, because grand juries are held in secret, it's better to do a preliminary hearing. So there's arguments on both sides of that. So those links are in there, and I would recommend that you watch both of these videos because they're both pretty good and they explain things. Now, in the pretrial process, you get arrested. The first thing that happens is you get arraigned. Then the prosecutor decides. They're either going to go the grand jury route, and if they do, there's one of two possible things that happens out of that. There's either an indictment, and this is the only place, I want to be really clear on this. The only way there can be an indictment is if it's from the grand jury. Now, if the grand jury goes, no, we're not gonna do an indictment, then that's what's called, the decision is called no bill. And that's like a not guilty decision. So it's called no bill at that point. Now, if the prosecutor decides to go the route of the preliminary hearing, it's kind of a mini trial, then there's two things that can happen. The judge decides, and the standard of proof is preponderance of the evidence. So it's just like 50.1, it's probable cause. And does probable cause exist that these crimes have occurred? And it has to be for all of the crimes that the prosecutor alleges at that point, and that you've already been arraigned on, and you've either pled guilty or not guilty. Now, if there's any charges that have popped up that you're going to be brought up during the preliminary hearing, then the judge will do another arraignment right then and there before the preliminary hearing starts, so you get a chance to enter guilty or not guilty, and that's the decision whether or not we're going to go forward on hearing evidence on these charges. So whatever charges the prosecutor intends to bring forth at trial, they have to do either at the grand jury, with the grand jury, or at the preliminary hearing. So if the judge decides after the preliminary hearing is over that probable cause does exist that you committed these offenses, then we're headed to a full trial. Then the prosecutor files an information. Remember, the grand jury is an indictment. Prosecutor files an information. And you're going to go in front of the judge again after that information is filed, and you're going to be arraigned a second time. Who knows, maybe even a third time if, again, before the preliminary hearing, not all of the charges that are being brought at the prelim have you been arraigned on? So you can have multiple arraignments, and generally people do the same thing all along: not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. Now, if the judge decides on any or all of the charges that no probable cause exists, then that case, that charge is dismissed. However, the prosecutor can refile on those without it being double jeopardy. And again, that's a AJ 201 kind of level thing. We're just talking about the general process. So we've got the grand jury that's held in secret. It's just a panel of citizens who sit there and go, they hear the evidence, and hearsay can be presented. There's a lot of things that can happen at a grand jury that can't happen at a prelim. And the biggest difference between these two, the grand jury and the prelim, is defense attorneys love up on prelims, because it does two important things. Number one, they get a chance to question the witnesses. They get an idea how solid the case really is. The second thing that they do is they lock the witnesses into statements. And there's a transcription. Court recorder is sitting there typing away, and the transcription is created. So when they go to trial, if that witness says something different, and oftentimes a trial could be even months or even years later, the witness gets up on the stand and testifies differently at the trial than they did at the prelim, defense attorney has exactly what was said at the prelim. And so what they'll do is they'll discredit the witness. So if, let's say the witness says that suspect was driving a blue car, but at the trial they testify that it was a black car, the defense attorney is going to go, hey, wait a second. Before you said it was a blue car, now it's saying it's a black car. What's the truth? Why are you lying? Did you lie then or are you lying now? And they'll just completely tear apart the testimony. So for a defense attorney, they absolutely love prelims. They do not like the grand jury system. So anytime, like if you watch that video about in the other state, and I think it's New Mexico, I just can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's New Mexico. And you see the people who are going, no, we should never have grand juries hear cases. It should always be a preliminary hearing, a prelim. Take a look at what their motivation is. Just listen to that. And chances are they're going to be people who are trying to get criminals off, like defense attorneys, rather than on the prosecution end of things. Prosecutors tend to like grand juries. Defense attorneys tend to like prelims, and that's why. Now, pop quiz. In case of an indictment, who hears the evidence presented by the prosecutor and decides whether the case should go to trial? Here's the key term: indictment. So I'll give you a second to think about it. Okay, long enough. It's a grand jury. Because remember, indictments only come out of grand juries. Information comes out of a prelim. All right, that's it for this video. And I'm going to give you a bonus video. And I'm going to answer a question. And the bonus video is going to be short and sweet. What happened to Ernesto Miranda? What happened to that guy who kidnapped and raped that girl? You'll find it interesting, I think. That's it. Yeah. Oh, that's his booking photo. I'll be talking more about him later.